Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. The Phils beat the Rangers 9-1. They take down one heck of a streak that they were on, and not a good one. How'd they do it? Well, we'll talk about it on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You might know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic here in Philadelphia doing sports talk radio for over 5 years. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure that you're rating and reviewing if you're checking us out in podcast form. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, so you can find us anywhere. And we're also available on YouTube. So if you're watching us, hey, how you doing? Appreciate you if you've already liked and subscribed, but if you haven't, hit that subscribe button. It'll get you notifications when new episodes are posted. It's free and easy to do, and it really helps us out. It helps you out. It's a no-brainer. If you like the content on Locked On Phillies and you want to stay up to date on what's happening with one of the best teams in baseball, hit that subscribe button. It's a great time as the Phillies get ready for their stretch postseason run. And boy, are they getting ready. 9-1 last night. Down in the Lone Star State, taking down the Texas Rangers. We're going to talk about the streak they broke, the way that they did it, and the strong performances from the game, including Christopher Sanchez, Brandon Marsh. Kyle Schwarber goes yard again because, of course, he did. Then, a little later on in the episode, I'm going to talk to you about one of the number one questions that I get when I run into Phillies fans out in the wild, right? I was out at the bar last night. Somebody asked me this question. I get this question like almost daily from people that I run into. What in the world's going on with Justin Crawford? We will talk about that. And then we'll preview Phil's Rangers game 2 as Jesus Lazardo faces off against Jacob deGrom. But let's take care of last night first, because a 9-1 victory is a beautiful thing. This game was close, though. Closer than that score would indicate. The Phillies just got going at the end of the game. And it's funny. So if you missed our crossover episode that we did, I did a crossover with Bryce Paterick of Locked On Rangers. And he tweeted at me during the game. He was like, the Phillies are 47-2 when holding a lead after 8 innings or 7 innings or something. And everyone's complaining about the bullpen. How do you explain that? Well, my explanation to him was they crush bullpen pitching. And they did it again last night. They really got after the Texas Rangers bullpen. Also, if you watch that crossover episode, you heard me bring up my low-key deep cut player that could make an impact on this series. Guess who it was? Yeah, that's right. It was Brandon Marsh. And that's why you got to listen to the podcast, folks. That's why you got to subscribe. Every once in a while, I might know what I'm talking about here. And Brandon Marsh, what a day he had at the dish. I mean, we got to say it was the Brandon Marsh game, right? He was unbelievable. A triple away from the cycle. He went 4 for 5 with a home run. Only 1 RBI, which is wild because the Phillies, they were struggling at points with runners in scoring position. I guess it could be the Trey Turner game too, because he had 5 RBIs, but he only went 2 for 4. RBIs are, hey, listen, you got to have guys on base. But Marsh was incredible. He's up to batting .278 on the year after an absolutely dreadful start. Now, here's where we're at with Brandon Marsh, okay? I want to make this abundantly clear. This is not typical Brandon Marsh. This is Brandon Marsh when he's red hot. The start of the season was not typical Brandon Marsh. That was Brandon Marsh when he was ice cold. The reason that I defended Brandon Marsh at the start of the season is because it seems like every year he's got a month stretch where he just becomes like one of the sneaky best hitters in baseball. I don't know how he does it. I don't know what changes. The approach looks so much better. The confidence looks so much better. But the swing doesn't look too much different. So I don't know. Maybe he's just one of those guys that gets in a groove. We see it with Nick Castellanos all the time. He could just be like one of those streaky hitters. But it's almost like 4 or 5 months out of the year, he's kind of just a guy. And then there's this 1 month stretch where he shows you something that you believe he could be. Now, we've seen this for 3 years in a Phillies uniform. So I'm not going to say, oh, he's great. You guys were all crazy. No, I don't think Brandon Marsh is like this all-star MLB player. But I do think right now he's swinging one of the hottest bats in baseball and definitely one of the hottest on this team. And that's why Rob Thompson's got to keep him in the lineup. He's got to get every opportunity right now because Rob Thompson said last night, and they showed it on the broadcast, his quote of, we're trying to figure out who's hot and who's not in this outfield rotation. Brandon Marsh, he's under the hot category. Yes, he qualifies right there as a hot bat for the Philadelphia Phillies. He needs to be out there. Trey Turner did have a really nice game as well. He had a home run, so that was great to see. So that's one of his 2 hits. He also walked twice. I mean, the Phillies offense, they didn't really get going until the 9th inning, though. It was 4-1 heading into the top of the 9th, and then the Phillies went and hung 5 on the Rangers to put this game out of reach. So what does that tell you? Well, closer game than you would imagine. Probably need to give some credit to the starting pitcher. And Christopher Sanchez did not have his best stuff. He got into trouble early, and he kind of fought through the 101 pitches that he threw. But he went 6 innings. He only allowed 6 hits, and he only allowed 1 earned, 1 walk. I mean, it's just kind of, he had traffic on the base pass, but he never really got into major trouble. And that's why Sanchez so good, right? Because even when he doesn't have his best strikeout stuff, that fastball changeup combo and how he spots it creates such weak contact. He's like Ranger Suarez if Ranger Suarez threw 96. And we know that Ranger can get the job done throwing 91, 92. Now we'll see next time Ranger throws, which will be in the series in Cincinnati, if he can get it done throwing 89, which is a major question that we've talked about on the podcast. But Christopher Sanchez, another strong start for him, another win. He's 11-3 on the year. That's pretty darn good. I'd be willing to say that he's higher up in my Cy Young power rankings than Zach Wheeler is right now. It goes Skeens 1, Sanchez 2, Wheeler 3 is how I have it in the National League currently. Now, the Phillies have 2 of the top 3, so that's a very darn good thing. So you saw a lot of great stuff. Other strong performances, JT Realmuto went 2 for 4. You saw Bryce Harper go 0 for 4. He did get hit, so that's not a strong performance. That's something to watch because he's been cold lately. But we also have to talk about Kyle Schwarber, who hit his 41st home run last night. Only went 1 for 5. But, man, if you go 1 for 5 with a bomb, we'll take that from Kyle Schwarber every single day, as long as the rest of the lineup comes through when you need him. And last night they did, right? Kyle Schwarber jumps on a pitch in the 1st inning, hits it off the foul pole, an absolute rocket. And that's kind of the tone setter for the series, right? For the night, for everything. That's why I loved him batting leadoff. I'm not advocating for Kyle Schwarber to go back to the leadoff spot. Obviously, the middle of the lineup thing has worked out for him this year, and it was a good call by the Phillies to do that, right? They made the right decision to have Trey Turner lead off, having an awesome year, and to have Kyle Schwarber bat in the middle of the order, whether that's 3-hole or cleanup, depending on the night, having an awesome year. Sometimes these lineup tweaks, they do matter, and that's why you have to open your mind up to that when we talk about it in spring training, because fast forward a couple months, and I could be sitting here in front of this screen in August telling you, hey, you got an MVP candidate and a guy who could lead the National League in hits. And it's because, well, partially because you flip-flopped parts of the lineup. So just a great overall performance by the Phillies. And the bullpen was darn solid too. Matt Stum goes an inning's worth of work, only allows 1 hit. Orion Kerkering, inning worth of work, struck out all 3 batters that he got out. And Max Lazardo, 1 inning worth of work, no hits, no runs, 1 walk. So he did have 1 guy on base. So every reliever allowed a base runner, but none of them allowed runs. And that's how you take a Texas Rangers offense that has been pretty darn hot lately, especially at home, and you shut them down and you win a game 9-1. It was Philadelphia Phillies baseball. And we've seen more and more of those performances lately. Think about the 13-run performance against Baltimore. Think about the way that you played those tight games against the Tigers. Think about the offensive explosion that you had in New York against the Yankees. I mean, this team's starting to kick it into 3rd gear, which is where I've wanted them to get. It's not just have one of these days, have an okay day, have a slightly good day. Like, no, I want to see maybe not 9-1 every game, but performances like these. And this lineup is not even at its best. Listen to this lineup that the Phillies trotted out last night. Turner, Schwarber, Harper, great. Realmuto batting cleanup. And he's been good, but he's not a cleanup hitter. I don't know who is, but still, that is not necessarily the most ideal lineup for this team. We'll see, though JT has been swinging it well. Castellanos batting 5th. Marsh, Kepler, who went 0 for 4. Start Harrison Bader, please, for the love of God, Rob Thompson. Otto Kemp, Bryson Stott. Think when you add Alec Boehm back in for Otto Kemp. Think if Harrison Bader's in there for Max Kepler. And then your lineup is Turner, Schwarber, Harper, Realmuto, Boehm, Marsh, Castellanos, Bader, Stott. That's a tough lineup because even the guys who don't hit it all that well they're guys that are going to see a lot of pitches. And Bryson Stott last night, 2 RBIs, 1 hit, 2 runs scored himself. It counts for 4 total runs. I mean, that's a pretty darn good night for a guy that hasn't been swinging it that well either. It feels like things are coming together for the Phillies, at least offensively. And when Christopher Sanchez is on the mound, you're going to get a lot of opportunities to win games. Now, we'll talk later on in the episode about whether or not the Phillies can do that with Jesus Lazardo on the mound, because I worry about the bounce back for the Rangers offense, and I worry about Lazardo and his inconsistencies that we've seen this year. But that's a question for 7:05 p.m. tonight. Coming up next, we're going to talk about a question that I've gotten at every time of the day for days and weeks and really months on end. What is going on with Justin Crawford? Well, I'm going to explain to you, as I see it, the Justin Crawford quandary that the Philadelphia Phillies have found themselves in this year. We'll talk about it as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about open phone first, though, because if you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time that you had a service emergency. Like let's just say it's a burst pipe and you got water pouring into somewhere in your home. You call the plumber, ring, ring, and it goes to voicemail. What are you doing? You leaving a message saying, hey, call me back at your earliest convenience? No, you're hanging up the phone. You're calling another plumber because you need something fixed now. And that first plumber could have had your business, but they didn't have open phone. That's why having a reliable business line is so important. That's why you need open phone, right? Open phone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. Maybe you used to juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate. Well, open phone solves that instantly. And your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this messages to try and figure all that out. And the AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so that you never miss a customer again. Plus, even better, Open Phone is offering Locked On Phillies listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's OpenPhone, OpenPhone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have existing numbers with another service, well, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. That's why they're the best. Open Phone. No missed calls, no missed customers with our friends over at Open Phone. Justin Crawford, the #1 guy that I am asked about day in and day out this time of year. What in the world's going on with him? Where is he? Why is he not up? And there's a very complicated answer to this. It was more complicated ahead of the trade deadline. Now, I need you to listen to me, all right? Put your listening ears on for a second, because some people are like, oh, very complicated answer. He's going to defend Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies and how they've handled this. That's not what I'm doing. I want to explain to you sometimes a point that I don't agree with, but explain to you why the Phillies are doing what they're doing so I can then tell you why they're wrong, right? You need to understand the important part of evaluating anything is understanding the opposing position. If you don't know what you're arguing against, your argument is immediately invalid. So that's why sometimes I sound like I'm defending things that are indefensible, because I just want to make sure that we know why the thought process is happening, right? And then we can debunk it as crazy. And I think this Justin Crawford situation has gotten crazy. But at the start of the year, like earlier on in the season, pre-trade deadline, Justin Crawford was not ready to make this team out of camp. So it was never going to happen that he was just going to be on this roster from the get-go. But then he played really well at AAA for the first month of the season, second month of the season, third month of the season. And the next thing you know, we're drawing closer to the trade deadline, and the Phillies outfield has been dreadful, and Justin Crawford has not gotten called up. So what's the potential reasoning for why Crawford had not been called up? Well, here's how I've explained it multiple times. I've said it on the podcast, but maybe you've missed those episodes before, so I'll just relay my point. If you're Dave Dombrowski and you have a dude hitting well over 300 at the AAA level, and you know that you're in a World Series contention year and you're drawing closer to the trade deadline, you know that that player has value. Now, remember what happened when they called up Mick Abel. Mick Abel looked good in a couple of starts, and then he fell apart and he got sent back down. And some people questioned whether or not that would hurt his trade value. Now, clearly not, because Joan Duran is still a Philly and Mick Abel was the cornerstone of that trade. Or one of the cornerstones with Eduardo Taitt, who was also a top 100 prospect in Major League Baseball. But my point is this. If the Phillies call up Crawford and he hits 150 for 3 weeks at the Major League level, and then you send him back down because he's struggling, the deadline calls on Crawford, fewer and further between, right? That hurts his value. Keep him at a place where he's producing so that people can talk themselves into, hey, look how good this guy is at AAA. We'll call him up. And you keep that value high if you want to trade it. And I think that makes perfect sense. I do. You can survive like till the trade deadline. It's not going to cost you your season not having Justin Crawford on this team at that point, right? A lot of baseball left to play. The Phillies were in good standing. It's not like they were in fourth in the division. It's like we're letting this season slip away because we don't have Justin Crawford. No. Could they have been better with him up? Probably. But they were playing the long game, being patient, to try and up his trade deadline value in case they wanted to move him for a big-time piece that could help this team win a World Series this year. That was my thought. You know when that goes out the window? When the trade deadline comes and goes and he doesn't get called up. And then you go, well, that makes no sense to me. Now, here's the tricky part about the Crawford thing, because they've called up Otto Kemp. They've called up Mick Abel. You've seen multiple bullpen arms brought up for opportunities, right? So it's not like the Phillies have not brought players up when needs have been there. So why not Crawford? Well, he's a bit of a different case, being one of the top prospects with the team. If you call up Justin Crawford, it does no good for his development to have him sit 3 games, play 1, or play 2, sit 3. If he comes up, he's gotta play, right? Every game for an extended stretch of time, whether that's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. If you're going to bring him up, no half measures, right? He's got to start. And then you get into the question of what do you do with a guy like Brandon Marsh? What do you do with a guy like Max Kepler? What do you do with a guy like Johan Rojas when he was on the team? And I know the answer to that is who cares? He's probably better than all of those guys. And I get that. But Crawford is not the end-all be-all for this team this year. He's not. He's a young kid who would be experiencing his first time at the major league level, and you want to be able to balance all of this out, right? You want to be able to say, okay, well, we're getting Marsh regular playing time so that maybe he gets hot. And look at what has happened. He's gotten red hot. We talked about it in the first segment. The Kepler thing is where I really get driven insane, though, right? Like Marsh can play. I'm good with that. Harrison Bader, we haven't really seen a lot of him yet, but I believe he can play, right? At least in some capacity for this Phillies outfield, whether that's a platoon with Marsh in left field or whether that's him playing center field or whatever the case may be. I need Harrison Bader out there. Rojas has already been sent down. So it seems simple, right? Now, here's why they're crazy. How easy of a move would it be to say, we are DFAing Max Kepler, who again went 0 for 4 last night. He is off the team. We're cutting our losses. Sorry, bro, you haven't gotten it done. Then you call up Justin Crawford. You play him every day in center field. You platoon Harrison Bader and Brandon Marsh in left field. Bader gets lefties. Marsh gets righties. You keep Castellanos in right field. Everything's perfect, right? Heck, you don't even need to DFA Max Kepler, because let's just say maybe you believe that there's going to be some power opportunities for a left-handed bat, like pinch hitting in very rare circumstances. Well, if you want to keep Kepler on the team, then what you do is you just send down Weston Wilson and you call Crawford up and he starts every day in center. Marsh and Bader platoon in left. Kepler, I guess, plays when he plays, but he's on like the Weston Wilson type of thing where it's just rarely, and he's still on the team. Now, part of the reason they may not want to do that is because Kepler has already voiced his frustrations about his playing time once this year, and maybe they don't want the situation in the locker room to become uncomfortable. Now, to that, I say, do what's best for your team. If Max Kepler is going to be the squeaky wheel, give him the grease and let him slide all the way to the free agency line, right? I don't need him on this baseball team, which is why I understand the Phillies thinking earlier on in the season, and I understand it pre-trade deadline, but I do not understand it now. Justin Crawford should be on this baseball team. The only other explanation, and this could be the case, right? I'm not watching every night of Lehigh Valley baseball. I'm watching the big league squad. So maybe there are some things that the Phillies are seeing in Crawford's makeup, in his game style, where they're like, I don't know if this will translate as well as we wanted to the major league level. They have all the information in the world on the kid. So maybe they don't have as much faith in him as his numbers would suggest they should. Now, that's just pure hypothetical. Like, that's all in my mind, right? So I don't know. That's making up a random theory. But it is realistic that that could be a thing, and we don't know that. So I am going to open up my mind to that being a possibility. But at this point, I do not care about that. I want to see him at the major league level. I want to see him get opportunities. I want to see him get called up before the September call-ups, because if he comes up in September, what does he get, 2 weeks, and then he's got to play in a postseason game? That's not ideal. You want to get the kid's feet wet first. It's got to be soon. It should be soon. And the Phillies, I think, are missing an opportunity by not calling up Justin Crawford. So that's my gauge on the current situation with Justin Crawford. Dave Dombrowski has said he's major league ready. I'll prove it, dog. Call him up. That's where we should be at. If he's major league ready and you have a weakness in the outfield, call him up and let him play. You can always go back to a different situation at some point, but the later we get in the year, the less likely it is that we truly get a chance to find out what Crawford is at the major league level, even if he is called up. So that's the Justin Crawford quandary that the Phillies have been dealing with all year. They're going to have to deal with another quandary later on this evening. How in the world do we hit Jacob deGrom? We'll talk about that coming up as we preview Game 2 of Phil's Rangers on today's episode. All right, let's talk game time, because we've all been there. Logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. And you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Maybe you're tired of that endless scrolling trying to find the best deal. Well, Game Time Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. They do the work. And if you've ever wondered what your view will actually look like before you buy it, well, Game Time shows you that as well. Panoramic seat view. You can see everything, so you know what your sight lines are going to be. And with Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets. They also got comedy. They've got MLB, NFL, like football, baseball, basketball, hockey, everything, right? Football's almost back. You can get tickets for that through Game Time. So use the Game Time app and download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed with Game Time. So let's take a look at this monster pitching matchup for the Phillies to face. Now, Lazardo has been really good at points this year, but we know he's been up and down. This other guy, well, he's found his stride. Jacob deGrom takes the mound for the Texas Rangers, and he is not a guy that the Phillies are unfamiliar with. He is 10-4 this year with a 2.80 ERA, and in 128 2/3 innings, he struck out 135. He's a great pitcher, man. He really is. Now, Lazardo has more strikeouts and less innings. That shows you just how good Lazardo's been this year. But deGrom is just significantly more consistent. His whip, 0.94. He's allowing less than a base runner an inning. And home runs have been a bit of a problem for Jacob deGrom. So there is a weak spot there. But it's another righty on the mound. So as the Phillies look to solve the Jacob deGrom question, he's a guy that has had real success against the Phillies as a Ranger, as a Met. Like, you've had trouble with deGrom, and everybody has in his career. It will be a much tougher day at the dish than what they had against Merrill Kelly. Now, what the Phillies did that was awesome against Merrill Kelly last night, they got that pitch count up quick. He was at like 50-some pitches in the third inning. That's a beautiful thing to see. And if you can put together good, patient at-bats against deGrom, foul off some pitches, create some chaos on the base paths, That's the way to do it. You got to the Rangers bullpen pretty early last night. That means they're going to be tired today. That means if you get to them early again, you're probably going to get a good opportunity to see some of their lesser arms. So that's goal number one, is get Jacob deGrom out of the game. Goal number two is get a usable start from Jesus Lazardo. Now, what is usable? Give me 6 innings, 3 earned or less. We will take that 10 times out of 10. Now, that may not be good enough to beat deGrom. Like, deGrom can go out there and just shove and throw 7 or 8 innings of 1-run ball. And you might say, okay, well, tip your cap. We saw one of the better pitchers in baseball today, and he beat us. That's not ideal, right? I hope that doesn't happen. But for Lazardo, I can't expect him to go out there and just go like 7 shutout. He's capable, but that's not what he's shown us consistently this year. So 6 innings, 3 or less earned, and we're saying, okay, you did your job today. We will take that. The offense is going to have to find a way to scrape across 4 or 5. Last night they got 9, and 5 of those came in the top of the 9th against the bullpen. So we know that they're capable of scoring in bunches in the later innings. Here's what's going to be really intriguing. The lineup tonight is going to be interesting. So remember when we talked in the first segment about who's hot, who's not, and what Rob Thompson said. Now Brandon Marsh is undeniably a hot bat. Well, Max Kepler followed up his 2 for 4 with a home run performance against the Orioles in Game 2 of that series back on Tuesday, with a first game performance of 0 for 4 in Texas, right? He was not good last night. The only time he came close to actually having something happen was when he rolled over on one up the first baseline, and then the throw hit him in the back, and he got called out anyway because he ran into the infield cutout and obstructed the throw, which is just like, all right, come on, dude. At this point, everything he does ticks you off, right? Isn't that how you're feeling about Max Kepler? That's how I'm feeling about Max Kepler. So I hope I'm not alone in that, and I hope I'm not being unfair to the guy, but he just hasn't been good. But it's another righty. So do you go with Harrison Bader in left field? You can't take Marsh out. Marsh is red hot, right? So Marsh is going to be starting in center. Castellanos is going to be starting in right. Stott's going to be starting at shortstop. And I imagine you're either going to get Otto Kemp or Edmundo Sosa, who did have a pinch hit, or I guess it was a defensive replacement, and he got a hit in his at-bat in the 9th inning. You may see Edmundo Sosa at third, but as far as the lefty-righty comparisons, the only place where it could possibly flip is if you start Bader over Kepler in left field. Now, Rob Thompson likes his handedness matchups, but at what point do you say, okay, we traded for this guy, the other guy's not getting it done and hasn't all year, we need to play him? I'll tell you right now, if Max Kepler is the Phillies starting left fielder today, I am upset with Rob Thompson. That's not how this should work. The better player needs to play. And right now, the better player isn't playing. Now, I'm not mad he started Max Kepler last night. I said on the radio yesterday morning, when I did the morning show, Kincaid and South Junis on 97.5 The Fanatic, I said Kepler's going to start tonight, right? There's no denying Kepler's going to start, because the last time he faced a righty, he went 2 for 4 with a bomb. So he's going to be in the lineup. But if he stinks tonight, he better not be on Saturday. And guess what? It's Saturday, and he stunk last night, and he better not be in the lineup. So I don't care where anybody else bats. He could bat Kyle Schwarber 9th tonight. Okay, I'd still be mad about that. But my point is this. The number one focus with the lineup is, does Rob Thompson have the wherewithal to put Harrison Bader out there, even though it's a very tough right-handed pitcher on the mound? Now, do I think that's the difference in winning and losing this game? Probably not, because the Phillies have shown you they've got the ability to create offense even with Max Kepler in the lineup. So they're going to be able to find a way, if they have their good approach at the plate, to score some runs, whether it's against the bullpen or against deGrom. But this is just best practices at this point. And maybe if, this is the beautiful thing, going back to the Justin Crawford quandary, if Harrison Bader goes out there and has a really nice night against Jacob deGrom, and then gets another opportunity against Patrick Corbin on Sunday and looks good in that one, well, then you say, okay, we can play Marsh and Bader, and we can rotate those guys because they're both good. And then maybe that opens the door for the Crawford call-up. I don't know. It could happen any day. It could happen never. That's why that's the quandary that we're talking about. But there is no question who should be in the lineup tonight for the Phillies. It should be your new outfield acquisition, and that's it. The one other thing I would like to see tonight, I'd like to see Joan Duran throw. I was on vacation the first 2 times he threw, and the Phillies haven't been in a game where he's in a save situation. So we haven't seen him for a couple of days. Well rested, did stretch out a little bit last night, and then they scored a bunch of runs. So maybe we see the big man tonight. Maybe the Phils blow him out again. Either way, if it results in a win, we will take it. So we'll be watching that, and we'll react to it on tomorrow's episode. We're also going to do a standings check-in on tomorrow's episode because I have not done that yet. The off day was spent catching up on like trade deadline reaction and all the stuff that happened. Kyle Schwarber MVP. The Mets lost last night to the Brewers. The tying run got thrown out at home plate for the Mets. So a rough night for them. Phils have a 3.5 game lead in the division. And we're feeling darn good about this, folks. So hopefully the Phils go get another one. That's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. And I'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.